What's going on, podcasters and YouTubers? This is Hav here, one of your hosts from the Real Fan Review. Today with me, we got El Rata Alada himself, B.
Bruce Wayne.
We got Vengeance in full effect, Sanj.
Good evening, everybody. As always, it's a pleasure to be with you.
And we got Detective Gordon, a.k.a. going to be the commissioner, Al.
How's it going, everybody?
Yes, and coming out of Long Island, New York, I am your Edward Norton. Is that what his name was?
Edward Nigma.
Oh, in the movie, it's Edward Nashton.
Nashton. Yeah. Edward
Nashton.
Nashton. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Nigma would have been too on the nose, so they guess they left that out, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to do the Batman review, the movie we've been waiting for the last year, or ever since we knew it was announced. I mean, this movie. I have been dying to talk to these fellas about this, so I'm waiting patiently, and my patience has paid. It's time. We're doing this. So we're going to talk about the Batman. We're going to do non-spoilers really quick, and then go right into the spoilers. So that way, if you haven't seen the movie, you get a chance to hear what we think and maybe give you a reason to go check it out. And if you have watched it, you just wait a few minutes and we'll be right there with you to talk about all the good stuff. Al, I got to know, man, non-spoilers, your thoughts on the Batman.
All my fears in terms of Robert Pattinson playing Batman went out the window, I think, within the first 20 minutes of the movie. I like the detective take on the movie in the sense that, we got to see this side of Batman as opposed to the rough and, fighter that we usually get in these other movies. It was more the cerebral Batman. I mean, there was the action, don't get me wrong, but it was more the cerebral. And, I think it worked for this movie, especially given the villain of this movie. There was one problem I had with the movie, but other than that, I went in there with high expectations and they were met for the most part.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sanj, I saw your reaction. I saw your son's reaction.
Right.
Yeah, he was into this movie, man. And how about yourself, man? I know overall you thought it was a good movie, but what's the reasons or non-spoiler, your thoughts on the movie?
The same thing. A lot of the same things that Al said. We got a detective movie, and it was also a Batman movie. And that's really what we were looking for. And I'll echo what Al said. I had very, very high expectations as well, and in some ways it met those, and in some ways it surpassed those expectations.
Wow. That's fantastic, man. Yeah, I mean, I know for myself, I went there with expectations because it is a Batman movie. And, Matt Reeves is known for a lot of those real movies. He made Planet of the Apes believable. He made Caesar a character. So I'm like, what is he going to do with Batman? And man, pleasantly surprised. I thought it was incredible. We are definitely going to probably argue out whether this is better than The Dark Knight or if it's just its own thing and just good. But I absolutely could not recommend this movie to anyone anymore. If you're into detective noir movies, if you're into comic book movies, it's a little bit more on the edgier, almost rated R side. So if you got kids that are younger than, I would say 10 years old, you got to really think about are they ready for this? Definitely under 7, don't do it.
Thanks for not making me feel bad by saying 10 and under. I appreciate. No, I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Given his age, because if you're if the kids are under 15, you shouldn't take them. I'm like,
yeah,
it's
man.
got a mustache now. It's cool. I saw it.
I know, right?
It's so weird, man.
He gets that from his mother.
But it's weird to say that for a Batman movie. But if I could tell you guys, man, listen, real quick, 2 of my favorite movies in my life, 2 of the top 5 of my movies is The Dark Knight, 7. And it was a blend of those 2 movies somehow, some way, and it was amazing. Yeah. I can't recommend this movie anymore, man. Jesus, go see this thing. Brandon, your thoughts?
As you all know, and I've spoken about this many times, I had the most reservations about this movie. I had the lowest expectations. The trailers did not do it for me. You know, from everything I was seeing, I wasn't in it at all. I really wasn't. And then seeing this movie, I threw it out to the world, to the universe, that this is the best Batman movie I've ever seen in my life. So it took my expectations and blew it out of the water completely. I had no faith in this movie, and nothing to do with Robert Pattinson. I just had no faith in the direction. I had no faith in the story. I didn't care. And then I think maybe just the opening monologue, I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. All right, I'm in it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then just like as it went on, you know, just like Al and San said, you know, we had year 2 Batman, but this was a Batman who was the brute, but he was also becoming intelligent, and he being that greatest detective, you know, and he was going along the way. You know, he stumbled a lot, but, you know, he wasn't the greatest detective at the time. You know, he was still learning, but he had all this stuff going on, and it was an incredible journey to watch from start to finish. And this full on through, like, was a Batman movie. You know, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about this. This was Batman in the sense that I've always wanted to see a Batman. So, highly recommend.
All right. I mean, and the last thing to say is everybody's rating. I mean, for me, it's a need to see. Al?
Oh, yeah, you have to see this and see it in the theater. Yeah.
Yeah, Sanj?
It's not just a must-see Batman movie. It's just a must-see movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon?
Pause us. Go see it.
Man, all 4, you need to see this, man. We haven't had a you need to see this year so far. I mean, still early. We just got to March. But, yeah, man, this was a great movie, man. It was fantastic. The experience of seeing this movie in the theaters was amazing, man. I actually did it twice. The first movie I've seen twice in a long time. I haven't seen the same movie twice in the theater in a long time. So this was awesome, man. So listen, guys, if you don't know how we do the non-spoilers. And for these big movies, there's so much in it that are spoilers. So we're not going to go into too much of the non-spoiler stuff to tell you about the actors. We're going to do that in the spoiler section so we can be 100% real with it. And again, you hear us saying you need to see this, you should see this, all this stuff that you got to go see it now. Go do that, pause it, come back to us, and then listen to the spoiler review now of the Batman, because we're about to get into this because there's so much to say and talk about. Here we go. Brandon, man, give me your complete thoughts on the Batman. What were you wowed by? What was there something that you didn't like in the movie?
I think, you know, the thing that wowed me the most is that, you know, obviously we've had a realistic Batman. You know, Nolan gave us the ninja, and, you know, he had the real issues. There was no sign of Superman. I think the most, like, over the top thing that he did was having the Batcopter, right? I think that was the most, like, out there that he did in the entire, you know, Nolan universe.
Right.
This Batman is exactly the way I feel Batman would be in real life. You know, like, I've never, and this is, you know, we know this, that Batman is the real person and Bruce Wayne is the mask, right? You know, we know that. This movie set it forward that, like, no, Bruce Wayne really is the mask. Like, there was no Bruce Wayne in this movie. Like, any time that Robert Pattinson was out of the costume, he was still Batman. You know, there wasn't a sense of him not ever being Batman or him being Bruce Wayne. Even during the funeral scene where he was Bruce Wayne, you know, and he was getting handed to him by the would-be mayor, you know, like, that whole scene of him in the church, he was still being Batman. Like, he didn't make small talk. He wasn't trying to be the eccentric billionaire playboy. He was undercover detective, like, in the church, you know, like, at no point did we have a Bruce Wayne. But and I feel like if we were ever to have a real life Batman, that's exactly who I felt, you know, that would be. Like, I could never see someone having the two lives like that. You know, this person's going to be Batman through and through. And that's exactly what he did. And I thought that was perfect. In terms of what I didn't like, I honestly, there's not much I didn't like. I just think that, like, in between certain scenes, you know, there was a little, like, if you catch it, it's a little like, oh, like they got a little messy there in the choreography or things like that. Like, you know, when Batman gets shot up before he goes into the Batmobile, like, I was cracking up thinking about this at home. My dude was on the ground laying down, and all of a sudden he was in the Batmobile. Like, I'm thinking in my head, like, he's laying on the ground and he's like, and just crawling.
The Undertaker.
He's just crawling over on his back, you know? So, like, it's things like that where it's just like, oh, if he had gotten shot at and, like, disappeared, like, okay, it made sense. But he was, like, lying face down on the floor. And all of a sudden he was in the Batmobile. So it was like, it seems like that, but, like, everything else was very well thought through.
How about for you, Sanj, man? What was something that wowed you or that you really appreciate about this movie?
A lot of what B said. I was wowed by Robert Pattinson's ability to play the role in and out of the suit. Right, I didn't feel like there was a difference when he was in the suit, when he was out of the suit. Like, and even in the suit, when he just, you know, you just have the little bit of his mouth showing and his blacked out eyes, you could still see a lot of acting coming through. Because he spent a lot of time in the suit, and this is one of the things I liked about the movie was that it centered around the Batman. He, you know, this was the first movie where you saw so much of the Caped Crusader himself in his costume, in many scenes and everything. In the Nolan universe, there was a lot of Christian Bale, you know, Bruce Wayne doing a lot of the in-betweens, and there was and not as much time of Batman in the Batsuit doing what Batman does. But it just felt like he was in the whole movie. You know, it was a movie strictly centered around Batman. And I will disagree with B on one point where we did get a little bit of Bruce Wayne when the mayor got killed, and he saw the mayor's young son. In that moment when he took a pause, that's Bruce Wayne. You know, because clearly he saw himself there, and he was having some trauma. Like, you know, he was having some PTSD in that moment. And then when they got back to the Batcave, and he's talking with Alfred, and Alfred starts, you know, scolding him for something or whatnot, and he turns to Alfred and he says, "You're not my father." That's Bruce Wayne. You know, and that was I love that exchange between him and Alfred right there, where Alfred's like, "I'm aware."
Yeah,
you know,
I think the whole theater went, "Oh,
yeah." And I think Alfred, you know, and in that moment, it wasn't that Bruce was trying to hurt Alfred or whatnot, and I don't think Alfred took it as hurt. I think Alfred is very well aware in that moment that he did not do a very good job of being a father to him, and like, damn, like that's what he feels, not like Bruce is like, you know, being a petulant child. And that comes out later on in the movie when you know, Alfred's laying in his hospital bed, and Alfred says to him, like, "Look, you know, I did the best I could. You needed a father, but all you had was me. I could teach you how to fight, but I couldn't deal with your pain." You know, and you know, because we know Alfred is Bruce's father, but I really love, you know. So I will disagree where we did get some Bruce Wayne, very little Bruce Wayne. And I think that's the way it should be. I love that it was a detective movie. I love that it's centered around solving the crime. You got to see Batman's brain, you know, using his brain. You got to also see him be a moron at times. You know, like it's exactly what you would expect from a young Batman, or Batman in his year 2. You know, so I love those elements of it. I can't point to anything in the movie that I didn't like. I love how Falcone played them all. I like the way they did it. Like, Falcone had me going. You know, like, damn, you know, Falcone, like, yeah, he's a criminal, you know, he's a mob boss, but yo, he was looking out. You know what I'm saying? Like, he really had me going. He played that role. He had everybody going. Like, he was really trying to do, you know, be some sort of caring character as well. Like, how he talked to him too. Like, I helped, I did what I could for you, kid. Your father, him and I were good people. He really had,
that mafia
had me
feel.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah. He really had me going. Like I can just point to so much stuff in the movie that I just love. I can't point to anything I didn't like.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's good though. How about for you, Al? What's something that wowed you in the theater, or something that wowed you about the movie?
The one thing I really liked from the movie was that they didn't do the origin story. Being that this is Matt Reeves' first take on the Batman, that they did it like year two. Like, this isn't where we need to tell you how he became the Batman, even though, he probably could have been tempted on a couple of the scenes when they did flashbacks. They didn't. They just assumed everybody knows who the Batman is, why he's the Batman. And even when they went into certain background aspects of his parents, they didn't do the whole "let's replay these events."
No Crime Alley.
Yeah, they stayed away from it, and I appreciated that it kept us in the story of what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
They had him making mistakes. He's supposed to be the master detective, but he didn't even catch on to certain clues right away. Like when the figuring out that the clue was a web address. He didn't figure that out right away. Whereas in most movies, Batman, as soon as there's a clue, he figures it out right away. So this one took him learning. The way they showed the Gordon Batman camaraderie and teamwork, without, again, showing us how it developed. They're just showing it in effect and how they work together. So I like that aspect. There was one aspect in regards to that police scene, the police station scene, and when Batman gets knocked unconscious at the funeral, that I thought, they should have done that a different way, because that didn't make it believable for me, in the sense that they made this movie, like Brandon said, very realistic, even more realistic than the Batman trilogies from Chris Nolan. So to have every cop except Gordon can't stand Batman, they have him unconscious, and not one cop takes off the mask. He's a vigilante, and not one cop did that. So I found that it's little certain things like that when you have me basing everything in reality, and then you take me out. He almost took me out. That didn't get done, but they very quickly pulled me back in. Everything else in terms of the movie was real good in terms of how you would think things would be. They didn't make Batman the hero. He was the hero, but he didn't save everybody. The plans actually go through, and then he becomes the, rescuer. So I thought they didn't give in to a lot of what a lot of other movies would have given into, given the IP and the backstory and everything. And I just like that they kept it to this story.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome that they did that. I think one of the things that wowed me the most is like just how they made Batman so fearful. I think his name was Vengeance pretty much in a lot of the movie. They were just calling him Vengeance everywhere, And one of the things that I absolutely loved and couldn't stop thinking about was the opening scene of Batman, not the Riddler part, but with the Batman's opening part, where the camera is just looking at shadows, and the criminals or the people who are doing things they're not supposed to be doing are just looking at shadows and getting freaked out. And it just was like, that's so freaking
I thought
cool.
It was the best.
That was so awesome.
Think one of the best monologues ever.
Yeah, he's sitting there talking.
And the fact that we got an introspective on Batman, like he was talking about what was going on in his mind, right? As opposed to just reacting to everything that's going on, and just a lot of Batman stories. You see, Batman just has a tendency to keep moving from task to task without ever much thinking about what's going on or how he's fitting into a bigger picture.
Right.
So then to start the movie that way was really good.
It was just great.
It set a tone. It set a dark, ominous tone for the whole movie.
Absolutely, man. And it's just like you got what the movie was trying to tell you from the jump, and which helps you go through the movie, and at the end you realize well, even Batman realizes at the end that he has to change. He can no longer be just vengeance, because now the criminals are, taking that element also, because now they want to be vengeance also, or they in their mind have a warped sense of what vengeance is and how they go about getting it. So that was just completely interesting and amazing. Something that was also wowing to me is the way they handled their villains in this movie, and their villains are exceptional, man. I mean, we have the Penguin, we have Catwoman, who's not so much a villain, but she plays that in between role in comics and in TV shows and stuff like that. We have, the Riddler himself. And this is where I think that we need to just concentrate on, because this is where they knocked it out the goddamn ballpark. I mean, Sanj, your thoughts on how they handled the Riddler in this movie?
I mean, it was great because the Riddler was there, but not there.
Right.
In most of the movie, like, he didn't really make his entrance into the movie until the very end. But he was there scheming and making everything happen, being one step ahead of Batman. Like, we're thinking he's always one step or two steps ahead of Batman, and the reality that wasn't the approach at all. In the Riddler's mind, they were working together, and they were accomplishing all of this together. Right. And it was just incredible that the Riddler made so much happen without even being in the story.
Yeah, I mean, he was the driving force of a lot of the characters.
Yeah,
his murders is what kind of linked Batman to all these places and stuff. It was just sick.
Right. But and then the clues that they left too. I was looking for it as well. Like, all right, why did he use this specific type of weapon? And then it comes out at the end, he did that for a reason. I'm like, how does this fit in? It's deliberate. Everything that he's doing is deliberate, right? So when he's like, and I'm like, damn, I should have known. That's to tuck a carpet, And like when they were walking around in Riddler's place, like, they didn't take up the carpet, and that was the whole point, or whatever. But it was just crazy how they did the Riddler.
Yeah, Brandon, talk to me, man. What's your thoughts on the way that they handled the Riddler with the John? Is it Dano? Paul Dano?
I think between their interpretation of the Riddler and Paul Dano's acting of the Riddler, knocked it out of the park.
Right.
You have what's given as a very intimidating presence throughout the movie. He's barely in any scenes. Like, really, he's behind a phone or a video most of the time. And just the fact that you can be intimidated by looking at somebody through an iPhone, that is incredible to me. And like Sanj said, he was always steps ahead, but it was like he had a game of chess, but he already knew all the moves. Like, he was already at the end of the game. He was just waiting for Batman to catch up. Bring him to the light. Had the whole game planned out.
Bring him to the light.
Bring him to the light. Like he may not have known who exactly was the person, but he knew it was going to get there. He knew at some point they were going to get there. His apartment was lined up right there. He just knew that right person had to be brought out. It was crazy that whole thing throughout the whole movie, just his presence alone scared Batman. Well, I don't know, scared, but intimidated Batman enough, where we got to, I think, I told you about this one in the gym, when they were in the church and they had the DA strapped to the chair, and the DA was so scared about giving up certain information, and not because of the Riddler, but because of who else might be about it, who else is on the other side of this thing. But the Riddler is just taunting Batman enough to make them, to make them both scared. And this guy is on a FaceTime, I was like, if his connection that good, and so just that whole approach to that entire thing was incredible. Just to get to the end of the movie, and you got Paul Dano being arrested in the cafe, and I looked at Hob and I was like, I don't even know what Paul Dano looks like. I just realized I'm
like, is that him? Is that really him?
I had this sudden realization. I had no idea what Paul Dano looked like, and to see him there, I'm just like, and him with the smile, and just he kept that character going. This guy needs help. For him to go to not Arkham Asylum yet. I think it was Arkham Hospital. and like Arkham Mental Hospital for that, and then his interaction with Batman in Arkham was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
That whole interaction, and that's something you and I talked about. I think me, you, and Sanj was whether he knew whether that was Batman and Bruce Wayne were the same person. And from that conversation, you can be torn in any which way, but like it's just the way that conversation came out was like spectacular. And that's it. Like there was no big fight, like no boss fight, like it was just strategy and execution the entire time. And that I think was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, man. I mean, Al, they kind of like in the trailers and even in the movie, it continued on. We never saw the Riddler's face in any of the trailers, in any of the promos. We never saw Riddler's face. Then we get to the movie. We're seeing this guy in a, like, it looks like a garbage, like some kind of manipulated mask that he completely made up. Yeah. It just, it was so weird, like
garbage bag with eye holes.
Pretty much. And it just like, it was terrifying. It was like, this guy is crazy, especially the way he was speaking on the phone and on the phone calls he was making as well. It was just building up. And you're like, what the hell is this guy? And then we get the IT guy at the coffee shop. Like, he was so normal looking and just so crazy. And then you're like, yo, Batman's villains are nuts. What was your thoughts of the Riddler?
Yo, he had me looking at my IT guys at work sideways, yo. Like, yo, what do y'all be doing? Them IT rooms by yourselves and shit.
You think I've any riddles lately? Riddle me this, Kevin.
But the funny thing with the Riddler character was that he is like one of those complex villains because in his mind, if you think about it, he actually thought him and Batman were on the same side because in his mind, he was exposing truth and injustice, which is what Batman is supposedly doing as well. Right. So he thought he and Batman were teammates. That's why he went during that back and forth. He actually says, we didn't get them all. He says we, as if Batman was helping him. Right. He really thought Batman wasn't just following the clues to get him. He thought Batman was following the clues to help him. So, and like Brandon said, like, I wasn't sure which way he was going with the Bruce Wayne. Like, was he teasing him that he knows he's Bruce Wayne? Or was he just, was he just having a break with reality and saying the name of the one that got away? Like, you really could dissect that scene and go either way with he knows or he doesn't know. But, at the end, that was one of the other takeaways I had of the movie was that, Riddler really thought he was doing the right thing. And I like that take that, I don't know if they've ever done that in any other movie or anything where Martha was in Arkham. And so Bruce, no wonder he's so rich. He's the Waynes and the Arkham. So he's got all that money behind
the royal families, right?
And like this, Riddler was just $1 billion away from being Batman.
Yeah. So
only $1 billion.
Yeah. And he's basically saying, like, my parents died. I had to go through this hell. His Bruce Wayne's parents died, and they called him an orphan. He lived, and the way they showed that dynamic of how he broke with reality and thought what he was doing was bringing justice to Gotham. It just made you show that depending on your perspective, maybe Riddler was the hero. And then you see, you say, well, that's probably how he's getting, 500 followers in that dark web chat room that actually were willing to go through with it because he convinced them, look, this is effed up.
Well,
look
even
what
at the funeral,
other than at the end, other than at the end, the people that the Riddler took out weren't innocent.
No.
Yeah.
It was only at the end where you can say, okay, now he's a villain because he's actually killing innocent people.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I was going to say, like, even at the funeral scene, he had those followers outside of the funeral place. It was just crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, but like I said, he really thought Batman and him were teammates. Like, he thought they were on the same side.
Just nuts, man. Yeah. And then another villain that I kind of think kind of stole the show a little bit. Yeah, he went in. He went in. But another person who kind of went in on the acting tip is we have to give a shout out to Zoe Kravitz, man, as the Catwoman, or Selena, just Selena in the movie. But she kind of just like owned the role. I mean, Sanj, how did you feel that version of Catwoman, or she wasn't even called Catwoman at once in the movie. She's just Selena throughout the entire movie.
Well, I mean, I think she was the perfect complement for Batman in this movie. You know, she was a lot. She went about her activity much more confidently than he did. You know, he wasn't always sure what he was doing because he was following clues and trying to figure stuff out. She was just like, no, this is what I'm trying to do, and this is where I'm trying to go and get done. Are you going to help me, or are you not going to help me?
Yeah,
you know, and she was a lot more. I think she was a lot more deliberate in how she approached her role in everything that was going on. She didn't see herself in the greater picture. She just knew what she was trying to do. So that was a great. That was a great playoff of Batman, who's a big picture kind of guy. Yet here they are, you know, kind of teaming up because they kind of have overlapping purposes. So it was great. It was great to see. I loved seeing their interplay, and then of course the subtlety of the budding romance between the two of them was kind of cool too, because they didn't actually go too far with it, so they built enough tension to keep you on the edge with their relation, their interpersonal.
We saw Bruce looking back. So we saw Bruce looking back on the mic. Cool.
Well, of course. I mean, listen, that's Zoe Kravitz, right? So that's, you know, Lisa Bonet's daughter, right? So I mean, and they look alike. And,
Ow, man! But
anybody, any man is gonna get caught looking there. You know that.
What was your thoughts of Selena? Al? I mean, she did her thing in the movie, man.
Yeah, like I like the way that, you know, in terms of a character that they easily, especially with how many characters they put into this movie, which was, again, one of my earlier fears, that you had so many of these characters in the one movie. Can you do them all justice? And I like that, yes, you know, like they were in it and she was brought in it, but they didn't make her character weak. Like when her and Batman teamed up, she teamed up with him until her needs were met. You know, like when they were doing something together, once she had to do something different in order to pursue what she was pursuing, she just went her own way. And that was one thing I liked, because it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to do whatever Batman tells me. She was like, nope, I'm here. We're working together until my interests differ and veer off. And she followed her interests. And so they didn't make her like a weak character. Oh, I need Batman, or I'm subjecting myself to Batman. No, she was, all right, we're working together. Okay, cool. And as soon as she didn't want to help him, like she took the lenses out and so forth when she was done with it. So I thought they did good with the character. They give her a lot of room for the future. So she can either be brought for a sequel, or she can even get her own spin-off movie.
Yeah,
and I think her character's,
because she said she was going to Bloodhaven.
Yeah. And they built her character up strong enough that she could, just like the Penguin. You know, they did a good enough job with these background characters that you're interested in wanting to know more.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And then one of those characters is the Penguin, man, played by Colin Farrell. I mean, the Penguin in this movie has a small role, but in that small role, he did so much, and he was crazy and he was funny. And I just really appreciated the way they did the Penguin, and I thought it was awesome, man. How about yourself?
I would never have known that was Colin Farrell in there. You know, like the outfit and everything, the makeup, perfect. You would never know. And his acting of the role was incredible. You know, and like I completely agree. Like, you know, he was comedic when necessary. He was serious. His backstory that was being interplayed in there, and then the fact that he was like a looming person here in this movie, but to other gangsters, he was like this small timer. Like he was insignificant. You know, but you can see, like, or you know, if you know the lore, he has such purpose, you know? So like you can see that this movie was setting up so many people to take on a bigger purpose, and he was being set up to take on something further in the future. We know there's a TV show coming out on HBO Max, and he's going to be involved. So it's like you're getting to see the beginning of their growth, and it was really cool with his character, especially like, you know, we joke around with the El Rata Alada, but you know, like that whole scene. You know, you think about what happened on that highway chase to get to that scene where he's just in handcuffs, and he's like, wait. We did all of this because you didn't know L and La can be interchangeable. Like, you know, like all, and you like, and you, that's where like the dumbass Batman part comes in. You're just like, oh yeah, he's learning. Like, he's learning. Okay. It's just like all the people that died, blown up, everything, just for them to sit there and be like, no, you got all this wrong.
He's behind in his Rosetta Stone lesson.
Bro, you got this all wrong. Like, we did all this for that.
Yeah, because even
you know, so like,
even the Penguin was
I
like, "Am I the only one that took Spanish class?" That shit was hilarious.
I think one of my favorite things too is the entire like El Rata Alada part, because I'm sitting there and I'm hearing El Rata Alada and I'm like, oh, that's like a bat. You know, it's a rat with wings. And they're like, what's a bat with wings? A penguin. What's a bat with wings? A falcon.
No, they said a rat with wings. A rat with wings. So I the same thing. I was sitting there thinking, like, really, Batman?
A Batman.
Really? You don't get it? A rat with wings?
He's like, I think a falcon is a bat with wings.
It has to be the falcon.
It's a pigeon stool. It's a pigeon stool.
like I was dying. Like in the moment, I'm like, oh wow. I'm like, come on, like let's get to the Batman. Like he's gonna get there. And then I got home and I thought about the whole exchange, and I'm like, we didn't get that. Like, and the whole turnout, like we chased down the Penguin because we thought a penguin could be a rat with wings. That was it for me. I was dying with that.
No one knows the difference between L and La.
That part was funny, but the part that made me funny and I laugh, and I don't know if it was supposed to because it's kind of dark. The beginning with the thumb drive.
Oh, that was so sick, dude.
Thumb drive.
That was so sick.
I had to explain. So there was a guy sitting next to us, right next to me. I had to explain thumb drive to him. He's just like, oh, that's like, you know, a rat, you know, connected to the thumb drive. I'm like, no, it's the guy's thumb.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, but why'd they do that? I said, well, those devices that are called thumb drives, right? That I said, they're also, one of the names for them is thumb drive. And he's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
He was an older dude, you know? He just, you know, not up on his technology.
Oh my God. When the commissioner saw that thumb drive.
Over who was going to put it on?
The commissioner's like, he's a sick one.
I liked when they put when Commissioner took out his computer and they put the thumb drive in it, and they're like, oh, this is massively encrypted. And then he was like, oh, it's sending all these emails from my email. I'm like, oh, what do you think was going to happen?
What is this Trojan.exe? Let's go on this one.
Do not click. I'm going to click that.
Do it.
He's testing us.
Obviously, another riddle. Download my wire.
Oh man! But let's get into the scene stealer of all scene stealers, man. I think this might have been one of the best entrances for the Batmobile I've seen in a long time, if not the best. Sanj, I saw your son losing his shit with that sound. I mean, that was incredible.
But let's be real.
That was incredible.
But let's be real. How fucking long did it take the Batmobile to start up? It took like 3 minutes for the Batmobile to start up. If he's going to try to chase the Joker in the next movie or something like that, like he got to leave the Batmobile running. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you better put the remote start on.
I'm like, how long?
Oh, wait, didn't we think he stalled out too? Like,
I thought he stalled out. I did think he stalled out. That was so like
because remember, I mean, look in the movie, and that was the one thing about this movie too. It teased the Batmobile, right? Like you saw it in pieces, throughout the first half of the movie. You saw the engine separate from the engine wasn't even in the Batmobile. You saw the engine up on the blocks because it was like, me and my son were talking about like, oh, is it a 10 cylinder? Is it a 12 cylinder? He's like, no, it's a 12 cylinder. I'm like, okay, kid, thanks. And then like, yeah, but oh my God, this is such an aggressive Batmobile.
what?
It really is like no frills at all. There's nothing extra to the Batmobile. It is just a tank of a car that just serves its purpose. It is strong. It is fast. It is fierce.
It's just incredible.
It's oh my
overpowered.
God.
Every time you hit the gas, it was swerving.
Overpowered. Everything.
Had a jet
and then when Penguin thought he got away, right? The cinematography. Here comes the Batmobile through the fire. Oh my God, that scene.
Al, man, I gotta ask, man, did your theater lose it when the Batmobile came out, or what?
Oh, kid, yeah. No, everybody went bananas when the car turned over and you saw the fire. It looked like flames coming from the engine.
It was a jet
to light
engine.
up the top.
Yeah, no, those were flames coming up out the carburetor. Yeah, those were definitely flames coming up out the
hood
carburetor.
was. Oh,
That's where the carburetor. It was coming up out of the carburetor,
flaming up, and then you hit sort of blue fire coming out the sides under the. Now everybody went nuts.
Yeah,
and then he kept revving it up, and then took off, and that's when everybody lost it. And then during the chase, and when he jumped over through the fire, it was just bananas, kid.
That's movie making right there, dude. That was crazy. Brandon, your thoughts on the Batmobile?
Yeah.
I thought it was sick. I joke about how he got into it, but he was waiting to turn that car on. He's like, "Oh, tonight's the night. I'm gonna fucking do this shit tonight." Like I can almost see a smile on his face after he took that gunshot to the chest, and he was laying on the floor. He was like, "This is it. This is it. Here I go. Here I go." Like he was too excited to turn that car on.
Wait, how did nobody hear that shit coming when he came to the building? He was parked.
He pushed it. Right. He pushed that shit there for the scene.
Building. How did nobody hear that?
He's trying to make an entrance, man. He's trying to make an entrance.
He left it there a day ago. He was waiting.
Oh man, yeah, man, Batmobile, kid. So now, let's get into the.
I mean, honestly, it has the Tumblr beat.
It's got the Tumblr beat.
Yeah, man. And mind you, we were making little jokes about it, like, "Oh, Toretto's going to be driving it." No, dude, that was incredible. But you know what's funny?
He wants to drive it.
If you guys would have asked me to describe what the car looks like in the daytime, no clue. I still don't know what this car looks like.
Dodge Challenger. Looks like a Dodge Challenger. That's what I would say. A Dodge Challenger on steroids.
Yeah, man.
With a jet engine on the back.
Yeah.
Man, so now let's get into the story of itself, because this story was really good, man. I mean, it was basically, since I watched it twice, it's a little bit easier for me to remember it, kind of thing. But it was basically the Riddler and Batman reflecting each other while taking Gotham to this next level of like, I don't even know. Like, I feel like the Riddler was trying to uncover the grime and the criminality of everything going on, and Batman was just kind of following along. But while he's following along, we're following along too. And I just felt like the story was just incredible when it got to about the Waynes, and when it went to the commissioner, and oh, dude, I mean, Al, talk to me, man. What was something about the story itself that you liked or enjoyed the most? Because I feel like I didn't like the ending of this movie too much. I appreciated the ending and what it did to show that Batman is for Gotham. He's trying to prove to the Gotham people that he's there to help, and he's trying to uplift and give hope instead of almost revenge and vengeance, right? But I don't know, man. I mean, what was your overall thoughts on everything, on the story itself?
Actually, it's one of the first times where I've walked away not questioning. Maybe if I see it again, I can catch on to something that says, "Oh, this is where they tripped up." But just watching everything, like I thought they did a good job in terms of intertwining all these different people into the common backstory of why the Riddler is doing what he's doing. You know, like you have the story behind Martha's parents and the murder-suicide. You have, the father and what he did and what he tried to do and how it looked a certain way. And then he had to find out later that he was trying to backpedal on it. And how that incorporated Carmine Falcone and the Riddler's father, who was the reporter earlier trying to expose everything. Like, there were so many little nuances to the story that you're like, oh, they're going to trip up somewhere. And from just observing it the first time, I didn't see a trip up. Like, I don't see where, oh, they say this is connected, but I can't see how that would be connected. This one, actually, I was able to follow from the beginning to the end of why everything was intertwined. And I think they did a good job of giving you a little nugget at a time throughout the movie to show how everything was connected.
Yeah.
So I was with everything going on, I was enjoying the story of exposing with each clue and each person that the Riddler was going after, why he was going after them, and then how they played and factored into the bigger story that led to the end. So I really liked that. Was one of the parts that I really liked about the movie was how well they intertwined each of the character. Like they weren't just an extra person in the movie because, oh, that's a character from the comics, throw them in. Like they actually played a part in the details of everything that was happening.
Gotcha, man. And Sanj, for you, man, I mean, the Batman is your man's in them right there. Did they do him justice with this story? I mean, was, like Al said, it's easy to kind of follow along because it kind of just played well. But did you find the story entertaining and you liked it as well?
I find the story very entertaining, and I think they did do Batman justice in this movie. You see, with bringing in elements, so the elements in this movie, they took elements from a lot of different Batman stories. Like I don't know all of them off the top of my head to reference them, but they took the elements of Falcone being involved with the Waynes. And have that story that Falcone told about how, one night he showed up at Thomas Wayne's house with a bullet in him and had to get help because he could, as a criminal, he couldn't go to, the hospital. That wasn't an option for him. That is out of a Batman story. And this, there is an actual scene where, Bruce is watching and knows about the history that his father has with Carmine Falcone, not the extent of the history, but so all of these things, the Martha Wayne thing, and being and her being an Arkham, that is part of it's not like Matt Reeves made this up, to fit his story. He took elements from a lot of different existing Batman stories and threw them in here. So he didn't like retcon anything or kind of make it up to suit his needs. So I feel like by pulling all these elements and mixing them, taking the ingredients, and he put a really nice dish on the table, taking ingredients that we know and that were available to him. I like the fact that the story was about Batman figuring out where he fits in all this, and now really kind of seeing just the extent of the corruption in Gotham, and it's really at all levels, and who's really in charge, and how people close to him were involved in this in some way. And then Alfred having to explain to him, like, no, like your dad made a mistake. Like he was a good man. Like when Bruce is now questioning his own father, right? Who he, even though his dad died when he was young, who he idolized, and of course he loved his mom as well. It just goes to show you that, as good of a person he was, when it comes to protecting his wife and his beloved, and the woman he loves, he'll go and do some stupid things, and it'll have repercussions that'll follow for decades to come. So I thought they took all those elements and told a really, really good story, and did my man Batman justice.
Good. Yeah.
At the, I do think it's an interesting take at the end there. where Batman says to himself, "I have to be more than just vengeance. I have to give Gotham hope. That's the only way, because, like we were saying, if he's out there dishing out vengeance, the criminals are going to come back the same way, and it's just going to be this never-ending cycle. But if he can give people hope, that's what's going to change Gotham." And then that scene I thought was really cool when he dived down, he cut the electric wire and he dived down into the water below when he had the torch, and you saw everybody just following him.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was very much a metaphor for him leading the people to the light, right? Because that was the thing that Riddler made him do, bring him to the light, right? And he became the light. In that moment, because it was dark, everything was shut down. People were drowning and couldn't see where to go to get out, and he became the light, the hope. So that was really
That's
cool.
awesome, man. How about yourself, B? What you think of the overall story and everything that you got there from the Batman?
I thought it was absolutely incredible, and just like Sanjay said, like the elements that they took from these comic books that exist, like the Long Halloween, that was the big one with the Falcones, and even the Catwoman reveal that Carmine Falcone is her dad was from the Long Halloween. Yeah. So like I love that they took elements from there. I love the fact that there was a lot of setup for potential in the sequels. Like obviously we had the unnamed Arkham prisoner, who may or may not be in the next movie, but we also had a really peculiar character that was brought up. Roger Elliott was the news editor, the journalist who was going to oust the Waynes, and he was killed. Roger Elliott is the dad of a supervillain called Hush, and he's a more recent villain in the Batman comics as of the last 6 years, But when you look at the realism that they're trying to make with this Batman, you now have a really plausible villain who could be the overarching villain of this entire trilogy if they wanted to go that far. Like you could have a villain who brings the Joker out of Arkham, and he be the villain of the last movie. And his story is so complicated, but you have a sense of purpose now because his dad was taken out by a Wayne, it's just the potential for what come next is incredible. I actually really did like the ending a lot. Because it paralleled for me for Avengers Infinity War. Like you have superhero movies where they just win, they win. And then you have Avengers Infinity War where they lost and the movie ended when they lost. This movie, before the movie ended, he had lost. He lost, when Riddler was just like, you're not as smart as I think you are. Like there's something happening, and by the time he figured it out, it was already too late. Half the city was already being flooded thanks to all the bombs, So he had lost. There was nothing to win. Even when he stopped the thugs in the stadium, whether he win or lost at that point, it was irrelevant,
Yeah, Gotham's still underwater.
Gotham's still underwater. Thousands of people died, But the point of it is just like Sanj said was at that point he realized what and who he needed to be for Gotham going forward at this moment. So even though he lost, essentially Gotham won because of who he decided he needed to be, and that's what was a really cool takeaway for me because he didn't win and he mostly lost, but he became a symbol by the end of this one. So now he's propelled into what comes next.
Yeah.
And you see most of the time prior to that, he's operating in the dark. He's operating in the night. At that point, he's now operating in the light. He's in the daytime. He's helping the rescue effort.
He seemed like he had been there for days, out on top of that stadium with everybody. So, where we have a Batman who disappears once it's safe, we had this Batman who stayed on that rooftop and helped people. Even so much, there was the scene where the girl was being taken away in the rescue helicopter, and she was clinging to Batman because she felt
that was a touching moment.
Yeah, she felt safety and trust in this guy who was in a costume. Like to have that kind of trust in somebody like that, says a lot.
Yeah, he had to let her know that it was okay. He was like, "It's okay, don't worry."
Yeah,
it was awesome, man.
One of the things about him being in a costume, those scenes, they did the scenes really well. So he shows up to a crime scene in a costume. and he looks really awkward, as you would think. Like, because in real life, if there's a nut job in a costume on the crime scene, it'd be like weird.
Yeah.
And those scenes, but you get like those scenes did feel weird.
Yeah.
You know, like
It was
the
awkward.
cops, like their their reactions were like, what the fuck is
Jim,
what is going on here?
this,
You know,
Jim?
like they're all like, yeah, like, you know, whereas in other Batman movies, it's like everyone's like, yeah, it's Batman. Like, y'all don't know, you know, like the fuck, you know.
Crazy, man. And like with the ending there, you know, Brandon also mentioned there that there was a little Joker kind of preview into there. I know, you know, it's funny because it's like, as much as I love the Joker in movies because they do him well, you know, he's always playing the character that is Batman's ultimate foil. But I don't know if I'm ready to see the Joker just yet, because we have so much Joker. We got the Joaquin Phoenix Joker.
So much.
We had the other Joker from the Suicide Squad from the, you know, years ago. I don't really want to see another Joker at this moment in time. And I feel like with what they're doing, they don't need to do that. They can just go, you know, I've heard rumors of the Court of Owls coming into the play. You know, possible, you know, my favorite was Two-Face, of course. But there's other things that they could do. So I'm just wondering, out of you guys, is there something that you want to see, or did that little tease of Joker make you want to see the Joker in the next one? I guess, you know, Brandon, what's your thoughts on that there? Do you want to see the Joker in the next one?
I felt like it was something they put in there for us. You know, like, but it's just like even if they have the Joker involved in some way in the next movies, like, it's not that I'm not looking forward to him. You know, I just feel like the route they're going, I felt like it was a tease, but it's not happening because there's so many more options now that are available to them because of the universe that they're building. If they decide to build a universe, they've set in Hush. You know, like, Hush is a prime candidate now. And his story is so much more realer than anything. You know, they can do Harvey Dent, you know, and if they do Harvey Dent or any of these villains the way they've done this movie, I could see a Harvey Dent, a Hush, and a Joker in one movie, and it works, you know, depending on what role they're taking in the movie. You know, I just hope it doesn't end up being what happened in The Dark Knight, but like, the way that they're able to navigate characters, they had 6 characters in this movie who they fully fleshed out. I have faith in Matt Reeves now that we could see a Harvey Dent in the next movie with a Joker, with somebody else, and they just make it work into the story together. I honestly don't need to see a Joker, but if you know, if they can weave in a story the way they did with this one, I'm all game.
How about you, Al? You looking forward to something with the Joker or something different?
No, like you said, I think they've done Joker enough. The one, based on the way B described them last week, that I would like to see would be a Mr. Freeze. Like, if you can show the way they did Riddler in this movie, if you can do a Mr. Freeze and tell the story of how he's doing all this crime because he's trying to save his wife and needs the money and this and that. If you can tell that story the way you just did this movie, I think it'll restore Mr. Freeze, you know, to be a legitimate Batman villain and restore the integrity of that character, because they destroyed it when they did Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, when they, I mean, that was comical. They made him seem like a joke.
Let's chill.
You know,
It's time
you know.
to chill.
So if you could bring a Mr. Freeze and do like a real version of a Mr. Freeze and give that backstory as to why he's a criminal, I would like to see that. That's the Batman story I would like to see, man.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. You know, I honestly, I would love.
Get in the freezer now.
I would love to see Mr. Freeze, and I'm like right there with you, Al. I think my only thing is just like, it seems like they're really trying to avoid CGI and keep it as real as possible. And like, I'm trying to see how they would make a freeze gun real. Like, I'm all about it. I just don't know if like it's in
what
realm.
if it's not a freeze gun? What if it's like an injector? You know, like a dart gun or something, where where he shoots them and is injecting them with like a chemical that does a reaction that like not freezes them up, but like solidifies them or like causes them to go into immediate. What is it when the body stiffens up after they die?
Rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis. Like, what if it kills them and puts them into immediate rigor mortis? Like, if they could do.
Well, then that would be changing the character a lot.
I mean, but at the same time, this Riddler in this movie, he wasn't there for most of it. You know,
because because Mr. Freeze, his whole thing, his technology is based around cryonics and cryogenics. So, there's technology that exists that's not too far off.
Yeah, that's what I said. There's got to be something that we don't know about that they could use.
Yeah, that if we suspend reality just a little bit, but again, it's how you present it. Yeah. If it's gimmicky and comical, well, then yeah, you're gonna ruin it. But it has to be done in such a way that it makes sense.
But if they could do a Jim Carrey Riddler and turn him into this, I'm optimistic of what they could do with a Mr. Freeze.
Oh yeah.
How about yourself, Assange? What is there something that you're looking forward to in the second one, or something you would want to see in the second one?
Again, I don't know if I'm ready to see the Joker, but at the same time, if you're going to tell the Batman story, like the Joker pops up from time to time, and every time that we've had the Joker shows up, it's for that final confrontation. So we don't get to see the Joker pop-ups, and get, foiled in that way. So, so their thing is that they have that history. So if Batman's in year 2, the fact that Joker's in Arkham in this version of Batman already means that they've probably already had a run-in and Batman won the run-in.
Yeah, it was like a pre-Joker, Matt Reeves said. Like, it's not the Joker yet.
Gotcha.
Right. So I mean, who knows? But again, he's only in year 2, and for the Joker to have the kind of effect that you want the Joker to have, they have to have history, together. The back and forth and the dialogue between the two of them. So I don't know how they're going to do that, because that would take many movies.
Yeah.
He's going to have at least like a good 3-4 movies and something going on, so that we know that that the Joker is well established. But I mean, if we're going to go right into another movie, which in the aftermath of this, Harvey Dent is the logical choice, because now you're dealing with the fallout from all of the from all of the crime and all the crime being exposed. So what do you need? You need a new DA right now, because the DA literally just got his, like, he lost his head.
And that's why I love the setup in this movie, because it gave you so many options. The DA is dead. Oh, well, who's the next DA?
Right.
Like
Harvey Dent, maybe. It's like, but that, I like that. It's exactly like what B said. They gave us a few avenues to go down, so they can choose one avenue. They can combine a couple of them. So I'm just interested to see what they do. Based on what they did in this movie, I have faith in them to tell the story and to tell the story well. So I'm just happy to be along for the ride.
Absolutely, man. And then last but not least, man, let's just go into just our favorite moments of the movie, because there's so many that I have. One of my favorite moments is when Detective Gordon is talking to the Batman, trying to get him out of the cop holding center where they woke him up from the explosion of the funeral home. And he's talking to him, and he's just like, "You're gonna have to punch me in the face and take my keys." Batman's like, "All right." And dude, he clocks him, dude. After he clocks him, like this is after he clocks him, they meet up by the bat signal, and he goes, "You didn't have to hit me so hard. You could have pulled your punch." "I did." He pulled his punch, dude. Dude, he clocked that guy something awful, man. That was so freaking crazy.
Wait,
go ahead, son.
Before we go further with the favorite scenes, what do we think about the bat suit?
I mean, listen, it was functional. It looked good, man. Looked good.
I want to know what the rest of the stuff on his arms are, but that's what's up.
when I watched it the second time, the first time that he like stands up against the criminals that were jumping the guy off the train, it was just perfect. It was Batman. There's no denying that it was Batman. Even Robert Pattinson, all that nonsense we heard about Robert Pattinson, is freaking Batman, man. He looked great. He looked great. He looked great, man. Absolutely. All right, so Sanj, man, talk to me, man. What's one of your favorite moments or scenes in the movie?
One of my favorite scenes in the movie was when the Batmobile, after the Batmobile made its entrance, not when it made its entrance, when he's chasing the Riddler and the tanker explodes. And he's not chasing the Riddler. I'm sorry, he's chasing the Penguin. And the tanker explodes, and the Penguin thinks, "I've gotten away." And he's like celebrating. He's like, "Yeah, take that. I got you, whatever." And then the Batmobile and they didn't do it right away. It was like they took their time. They took a little bit. They gave us about 30 seconds, and then the Batmobile explodes through the fire. And you hear the engine rev, and it hits the floor. And he just comes up and hits the Riddler's car. Apparently, Riddler. I keep saying Riddler. He hits the Penguin's car, and apparently, Penguin was driving a Maserati. I was wondering how, Penguin's car was outpacing the Batmobile, right? Because at first, to me, I'm like, this looks like a Honda. He's driving like some regular schmegular car, and he's getting away from the Batmobile. And then my son was like, "No, Dad, he's driving a Maserati. Those cars can move, right?" So, and then he neutralizes Penguin. His car goes flipping, and then he gets out of and then it's an upside down scene. Yeah. Right, and you see from Penguin's perspective, because he's flipped over, he's upside down. So it's a scene from his perspective, and you just see Batman exit the Batmobile and is walking with the fire in the background,
with the music,
and he just crouches down and just looks at the Penguin through the window. Yeah, and then the music in the background. I'm like, oh my god. Chills down my spine, goosebumps, everything.
Al, talk to me, man. What's one of your favorite moments in the movie that you saw, man?
For me, would have to be, and they showed it in the trailer, was the scene where Batman comes to go after, I think it was Carmine, and he's walking down the hallway, and the guys are just lighting him up with machine guns, and the bullets are just bouncing off. Nothing. He's even sending them back, and he keeps taking them out. And you got to imagine, he's instilling that fear. Everything about him is to try to instill fear in the bad guys. And if that scene right there, if you were one of the bad guys, at what point do you just say, "Shit, I just unloaded a clip. He unloaded a clip, and the guy is still coming out." Like you say, like normally in the comic books they show the guy just drop the gun and he runs away from Batman. I wouldn't have been. It would have been fitting if they had just done that, because at what point do you just say, "Yeah, shit, we can't kill this guy"?
Right.
So I thought that was a poignant scene of them and what they're trying to show in terms of how Batman is instilling fear in bad guys.
Gotcha, man.
I like that scene.
That's awesome, man. Brandon, how about you, man? What's one of your favorite scenes there?
I fucking loved every scene, but I think for comedic effect, one of my favorite scenes was when Alfred is waking up in the hospital and Bruce Wayne is sitting there, and literally this guy just opened his eyes. He goes, "Hey, puss, you motherfucker, you lied to me about my parents," right? My man just woke up after being
dude just got exploded.
The first thing you're like, "Hey, motherfucker, you lied my whole life." I would have been like,
close your eyes back.
Just close my eyes. Like, no way. Dude, I just thought that whole scene, as touching as it became, I ran that scene in my head a couple times, and I was like, yo, he's a piece of shit. He's a true piece of shit.
Stop pressing the morphine button.
Right? Put me back to sleep.
B was like,
oh.
Nah, that's the point where you just make the
Alfred's not here right now.
Oh man.
You've reached Wayne Manor. Please leave a message. We will return your call at our earliest convenience.
Crazy, I loved how touching that moment was, but I ran it in my head and I was like, yo, that's a fucked up moment.
My man just blew up. Like
it's like he sat there for a couple of days just waiting for him to open his eyes so he could say it. Like that's
That's so crazy. You know what, Brandon? I thought you were going to say was we talked about it in the gym that the other morning where we said that when he was in the cathedral for the funeral home, and the Riddler's giving this guy 3 riddles so that he can save his life. So the second riddle was, if you are justice, what is the price for your blind eye? And Batman goes, bribes, right? So he goes, bribes. He goes, no, how much for the bribes? He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, how much would someone have to? He goes, 10,000.
10,000.
And then Batman looks like, what? Who did you bribe? He goes, he didn't ask that.
He didn't ask that.
He didn't ask that.
Number 3. We're going to number 3.
But in that same comedic way,
Batman is acting as a lawyer at that point.
For real. But then to counteract how funny that was about, him not wanting to say what bribes or who he gave bribes to, was then the third one was with those bribes and all the stuff. I forgot the riddle that he used, but basically saying, who's the rat? Who is the rat that you have to give up for you to live? And he wouldn't give it up. And then the next scene, after Batman comes out of the little concussion he had there, he's looking at every officer, every person in that room sideways, because he's like, dude, he died just now because he didn't want to say who the rat was. So who else is on his team?
Yeah.
That was, I thought that was just incredibly done, man. That was just awesome, man.
I love that scene too, because when he was just like, wait, you're not going to tell him? Like, dude, I'm with you in this room. This bomb is going to hit me too. Like, tell him. You're like, nah, I got kids.
Batman's like, I'm your lawyer. You have attorney-client privilege. Like, what I'm
He's
saying?
like, nah, I got kids. He's like, oh, I'm right here.
Oh, goodness, man.
It'd been funny if Batman just turned and started running away.
Right?
He took it so hard, too.
Dude, he was right there in front of him.
They gave him the slow-mo on that.
Yeah,
I feel
man.
like that was a real stunt. Like, I don't think that was fake. It was a real stunt. He took that blast hard.
It was crazy, man. There's a lot of good scenes, man. Another one that comes to mind is I've never seen Batman clench up like he was on top of that freaking building. You saw that he realized how high he was. He said, I've never seen Batman scared in my life. That was hilarious. Oh man, fellas, you guys got anyone?
And then when he deployed the parachute at the wrong time.
Brutal is what that's called.
I like when he got up and started walking. That was great. That was the most realist part.
Yeah, he was like dragging one leg.
Trying to pretend it didn't hurt.
I'm vengeance.
I mean, I thought it was cool throughout the movie how Selena Kyle just called him Vengeance. Come on, Vengeance, let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
that's so freaking crazy, man. Yeah, man. All right, listen, man.
Yeah.
Batman was fantastic. It was great. It lived up to the hype. I'm worried about the rest of 2022's movies because I don't know if anyone's going to match up that Batman movie, man.
Yeah.
Let's go, Morbius.
there's a lot of stuff on the
Sonic
docket.
2.
I don't think so. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up in 2022. I did look at a listing of everything that's coming out. I can't remember it all off the top of my head.
Right.
So I don't think we're going to get anything as good as the Batman. But we're gonna get a lot of good stuff where we're like, okay, we're happy with a lot of this other stuff coming out, so that we won't have to feel like, oh shit, we peaked early.
Yeah.
This is the peak, but there's gonna be some good stuff coming out this year. Some of the because remember a lot of stuff that got pushed back, is gonna start coming out. So we're gonna get that influx of stuff that was pushed back. So we'll be okay.
All right, I'm hoping so, man. And then this is
Before we go,
yeah.
Yes or no around the table. No explanation, just yes or no. Does Riddler know that Batman is Bruce Wayne? I say no.
Nah.
B?
Yes.
You think he does know?
All right, so we got 3 no's and a yes.
All right, we'll
Okay.
find out in part 2 or part 3. But I know, right?
Wait!
No, but this is truly the last question because I had to ask this because you two started it at the theater. So I'm going to ask this last one. Brandon, is The Batman the best Batman movie you've ever seen?
Yes, I put it out to the universe. I've written it on my ledger. It is the best Batman movie I have ever seen.
Wow.
You have The Dark Knight. Like, I think The Dark Knight is the greatest Batman movie, up until this point. It had everything and more, but there were a lot of notes in that movie where it just didn't hit a lot. Like, just the legacy of that movie is incredible. You know? It holds up every day. But this movie, like, I personally can't see a sour note anywhere. Like, there may have been 1 or 2 things that didn't make the most sense, but it didn't derail me, right? There were a lot of things in The Dark Knight that didn't make any sense, you know? And for those reasons, and just the fact that this movie was almost 3 hours long, and I was invested full-heartedly. I couldn't wait for the next scene. I put it out to the universe. This is the best Batman I've ever seen.
Al, your thoughts, man? Is this the best Batman movie you've seen, or?
I want to give it another viewing or two before I say yes or no. I want to say it's definitely up there, but I don't want to use the novelty of the movie to sway me in any way. Like, I want to let it sink in, maybe see it, like I said, see it again once or twice, and then decide where it ranks with the rest. It's definitely up there.
Gotcha.
It may be Dark Knight and then this, or this, then Dark Knight, but whatever it's going to turn out to be, it's going to be very close.
Gotcha, man. Yeah, for me, it's not better than The Dark Knight. It's right there. The second viewing solidified it for me because I wasn't sure after the first movie, the first time I saw it. But the second time I watched it, I was like, yo, this is really, really good. But I saw The Dark Knight like 5 times in the theater, man. I'm not going to see this 5 times in the theater. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it on 4K. But it's not The Dark Knight, man. The Dark Knight has something special to it. I don't know, man. To me, it's right there, though. Sanj, final word, Batman lover.
I'm not ready to say it, but I feel it. Some part of me feels it. I'm not ready to say it. I think we're now in a LeBron Michael situation with Batman.
I hear you. Absolutely.
It's going to be very hard. I think you can make an argument either way for either one, and there's no wrong. I guess at this point, there's no wrong answer. Is The Dark Knight the best one? Yes. Is this one the best one? Yes. There's no wrong answer.
Right.
To that question now.
Absolutely.
But it's just I think I can appreciate both of them equally, and both of them for what they are, for when they were, and how they are now. I agree with you on the things with The Dark Knight. Like, I keep going back to that over and over and over and over again. But I will probably go back to this one over and over and over again. Just there's so much in it. So I'm not gonna say one or the other. I think we have it's 1A, 1B. LeBron, Michael, LeBron, KD, whatever. However you want to look at it.
Yeah, man. So listen, you guys are listening to us on a podcast app or podcast playlist, or you're watching us on YouTube. What did you think of The Batman? Did you enjoy it as much as we all did? Is it in your top 1 or 2 for your list of Batman movies? Because it's a lot of people debating right now whether it's better than The Dark Knight or if it's not, right underneath The Dark Knight. So where does it land on your list of rankings there for The Batman? So listen, coming out of Long Island, New York, you got myself, Hav. We got my brother B.
Adios, everybody.
We got our man Sanj.
Good evening, everybody, and stay safe.
We got our man in the chair, Al.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yes, and myself, Hav, again, saying thank you guys for watching, listening. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the podcast plus symbol there on your podcast app so that we come to you every week. You can hear us on every movie review that we watch and all the little preps that we get ready for these other movies, man. We're going to have so much more coming out in the coming weeks. Follow us and stay tuned, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Until next time.